right in the...
I'm here, find me.
Yeah, okay. No.
Lucky young.
That was so...
The old Ford.
I know, but it was still, it was so fucking powerful. Thanks, man.
Okay, here we go.
Part of the prep was coming to Abel's apartment every night around 10 or so. I think I would come over and I would put in videos that I was thinking about or wanted you to look at. I would just sit in your room. You would go off and do things. You didn't mind having me there. And I worked at your apartment. I don't know if you remember, but I went there every night and worked there. And part of the night thing, I mean, I'm a night owl anyway, but walking home New York like at 2 in the morning, that was part of the prep, you know, feeling that night life. Pixies, some of the Pixies songs, Debaser was a song I would listen to a lot. You know, I was going out with Mike Imperioli, and Mike loved that energy and was with me. You know, we'd walk around New York at night and think about the addiction and think about, you know, I would share with Mike remember when I found the movie about the lions killing the wildebeest, and it reminded me of the last scene in the movie, just that animalistic kind of carnivore feeling, you know, kind of that natural element where in the natural world it's neutral. It's not a good or bad thing. It just is. There's not a judgment to it. That the predator is eating the prey, and there's no point of view from predator or prey. It just is. And it had that feeling, that last scene of just, it just is. It just...
Hit a sleigh, please. Set for... Yeah. Just clap your hands. All right, so, what about the cast?
When I came to New York in '88, and I was working at the Public, that was my first play in New York, Walken was doing Coriolanus. And we would all share the same green room. And my theater was down below. Walken's was above. There was a lot of drumming in his. Anyway, I got to see Coriolanus many times, and I got to like be around Walken as he was preparing, you know. So that was my first experience with him. I'd already loved his work as an actor anyway. So I got to see. I mean, first of all, I think he does classics the best. I think he does classics the best out of most anybody, actually. And one of the reasons why is I think the instinct that he has, it's his unique point of view. I mean, it's his authenticity. It's his, and there's some authenticity has been on my mind lately, how important it is, and he's got it.
And how do you define that?
Well, I'm not sure, but I do know that if you connect to your truth, to your authentic truth, that it becomes universal. By getting into the specificity of your truth, it almost becomes universal. It's this really deep thing that happens, you know? And you'd think almost by getting so specific to you, you would be pointing, getting narrower, so that it doesn't connect everybody. But by going into the specifics of truth, it becomes universal. It becomes so deep, it connects to the whole root system or something, to everybody. Anyway, he's got it. He got it.
There's a sound man over here. We're going to come.
Yeah, maybe you want to back. You got your stuff in the back?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Why don't you back down here and we'll go in here?
Okay.
All right. All right. 3, 6, 4. Ow.
Ooh.
No, you know, no, nothing.
The thing is, you know, you get, what do they say? They say actors don't retire, they get retired. The phone stops ringing, you know. You know, to find parts for people, you know, when they get into their 70s, it's,
Tus tráilers.
you know,
Visita mi canal.
you're going to be somebody's grandfather or, you know, their uncle, or it's got to be certain things, you know. I never was the lover, never. But especially now.
You'd be awesome. You could be like 600,000 shades of grays.
No, but I never played the romantic stuff. Yeah, well, I always say to my wife, this is my sanitarium, you know, this is my, so it could be, you know, just a sanitarium. Place where you come to get better, you know. I thought it was a terrific movie. And I love vampire movies anyway. I've seen every vampire movie. It had really original things, you know, in the way of vampire movies. That party at the end where the vampires invite a friend. I never saw that before. But there was some point in the party where somebody did something or
Julia, they gave her.
and everybody sort of bites their guest. It was one of those things, I read somewhere that there's this connection between what makes people laugh and what makes them afraid, that it's almost the same thing. That when people laugh, that there's something about being afraid connected to it. That when we smile, that what we're doing is showing our teeth. You know, it's like animals, when human beings smile, that there's some connection to being scared. I thought that was, because that scene is hilarious and it's scary. I mean, it's like the two things are the same. And then, you know, my character was very interesting. Julian Schnabel let us use his house, remember? All that's torn down, you know, he built something else in its place. Yeah. So all those rooms, you know, with the big paintings.
Yeah, no, that elevator, the fucking elevator.
It's all, you're right, that's gone.
You ride in that elevator.
Yeah, that was a very dangerous elevator. Remember?
Yeah.
Nothing to protect you. You had to make sure you wouldn't want to fall over on that one.
No, forget it.
No, that's a very good vampire movie.
You know,
I get asked that, though, about a lot of different parts, and the truth is, I learn the lines. I don't really ever think about the psychology of anything. You know, I think it's probably because I never studied to be an actor. I used to be a dancer, and when I started to get acting parts, you know, I learned the lines. I never think about, you know, what would it be like to be a vampire? You know, I have a theory about movies that if you're an actor in the movies, that if the script says that you're whatever it is, and if the people around you treat you that way, you kind of are whatever it is you say you are until something happens that throws that off. You know, that the audience will accept whatever you say you are. You know, if I say I'm a vampire or a billionaire or that they believe it as long as you don't get them off that track.
All right, bravo. I can't clap because
There we go.
there we go. Very nice, very nice. This crowd of thousands of people.
What else do we got, Abe?
So, No, I remember you had just gotten the piano. You remember you just gotten that grand piano?
Yes, right. Right. We were doing those sessions with Nicholas,
Yeah.
and he was up there doing a certain amount of songwriting, and Danny Tone was in there.
Really? You, Nick, and Tone? What were you guys doing?
What about him?
You, St. John, and Danny?
Yeah.
What were you writing?
We did one song which I don't think ended up in the film called "Step Into the Light." We might have used some of the instrumental. We might have used some of the instrumental backing track on it.
Right.
But Nicky was definitely involved in songwriting, and he was around. You know, he was around for a lot of the sessions upstate.
Wow.
For sure.
You have any of those tapes left?
Huh?
You have any of those tapes?
I think I do. I'd have to pull them out. You know, the formats have, long been obsoleted. You know, so we have to pull them out. But I should have all the masters from that session. It would be interesting to pull this.
Where do you keep all this shit?
I've got shelves. You know, I got everything is on the shelf. But I've got all the stuff from King of New York and Bad Lieutenant.
When was the last time you were in touch with Nicky?
With who?
Nicky.
Wow, that's a good question. I saw him, it would have been maybe a couple of years after Jake was born, so that would have been 2000, something like that.
And no one's seen Nicky?
2000, 2001.
Where'd you see him?
Went upstate and visited and had a nice dinner with Nicky and his wife.
Wow.
It's a beautiful daughter, but it's been years and years. I haven't.
With my memory of that.
Right, the Yamaha, the white Yamaha Grand. I think that's what we did it on.
And you still got it?
Yeah, it sounds great. We went with a minimalist kind of feel on this thing, where we just played the melody on that piano, right, and just added a ton of reverb. But it was something like.
Yeah, that's right, with the great Philip Seymour Hoffman.
How well did you know him?
I knew him very well. I got to be friends with him. And he really was a great actor.
Tus trailers, visita mi
Oh
canal.
man, he could have been doing it for the next 50 years. It's interesting, to die that way, because I would go to dinner with him, and he didn't drink. You wouldn't have him. He'd eat his dinner, and he didn't want any wine. And I had no idea that that he was doing that. It's really tragic.
I knew that for me, knowing that I was an alcoholic and continuing to drink for who I am was killing me, was killing my soul.
Right.
I could not tolerate it.
Did you need it to act, or did you?
No, I didn't, no. No, and I remember all my favorite actresses, like Geraldine Page, or I would always want to know if they were an alcoholic. Because I was very ashamed of it. It was not a badge of honor for me. It was something that, and if I would find out that, I was comforted because I heard Geraldine Page was an alcoholic. So then I was like, phew, she's an alcoholic too, because I just thought I was going the way of, chip nail polish, bar stool, sad woman, 50 years old kind of thing, And I wasn't happy about that. And that's not what happened. I got very young, it happened, and it's not how I wanted it to happen at all. I was hoping to go a little longer.
But you had experience with heroin or not?
Me, no. No, that was something, that was my yet. That was one of those things I just said, do not do it.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
Right. Right. That's right.
Yeah, I said that for 44 years.
And that's what happened.
First time,
That's right.
You say,
And that's exactly what I sensed, what happened to you. all bets were off. When you did it, that was it. Goodbye.
Yeah, you know, because it's the physical longing that's the vampire story also. You know, it's the physicality. You know, like they say, you know, you chase the coke, but the heroin chases you. You know, so it's a whole different ballgame. You know, because it's a physical deal. And yeah, I mean, it's a crazy parallel there. But what else?
Do you see the film as uplifting?
Sure. I mean, I see anything that goes into struggle, you know, into wrestling with stuff. I see that as uplifting, because it's helping me. It's talking to me about things that I'm going through as a human being, and I'd rather talk about that stuff and get into that stuff than not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me have this camera. So let me ask you, Carol, let me ask you a question. But the thing is, how could, I mean, is this rolling? Okay. I mean, how could it not be uplifting? I mean, it's about resurrection, you know, through the word of Christ.
I understand that, but what? Okay, when you
that's
become
your position, right? I mean, where are you at?
Where am I at?
Was, yeah, in terms of Jesus and.
Well, you know, mine is a very complicated process. I think, you know, I think that God has manifested himself to different cultures in different ways. So, you know, and I think that, you know, Jesus would find it abhorrent that people even called themselves Christians. The message of Christ is so far removed from the original whatever. So, you know, how do we know what the Buddha said? I mean, Buddha's stuff wasn't even recorded for 400 years until after his death. However, the message of the philosophy of Buddhism is certainly much more closer, I think, than what, you know, the message of compassion. The message of compassion, which is great in the movie too. But the problem with what happens to victims? What happens to Catherine Irby? What happens when you turn into a predator? What happens when you bring that Annabella's curse to somebody else? Where are you? I mean, and metaphorically, I can see where that is. I mean, look, you know, those of us that are in recovery, we've done so much scar tissue during our active period that how do you make amends? And I mean, that's the character is risen, but the character never makes amends to the people that she has passed her addiction along to. So if you want to look at it that way, how is it uplifting? Because there are still victims there that are continuing the addiction. It's like if I turn you on to a heroin you know, habit, and then I get recovered, if I get clean, I'm still, geez, you know, I could be responsible for your death. That's a heavy thing to make amends to.
The thing about the film, though, is, again, it's very specific, and Nikki has a very specific belief, but I feel that it's inclusive in that it doesn't preclude, I'm still allowed to have my own beliefs and watch the movie.
Right.
You know, which makes it universal, you know, even though it's so specific. I don't have to believe in Jesus to get something out of the movie. There's a universality to it, I think.
Right. Yeah, well, you just gave a good counterpoint to it.
Well, you know, there is always the resurrection, and then that's what it's all about. You know, if you're
Hold on.
if you're wrestling,
take two on the
there is the metaphorical whatever of resurrection. So, you know, maybe you're not a believer in the body coming back. You know, but however, when you're in recovery, you're recovering from that particular. The old self has to die to become the new self. Exactly. That makes sense at all. Exactly. It is. So, you know, maybe if you look at the addiction in terms of addiction to total addiction to something, and of course the idea of having to chase down another human being. You know, I've been watching. I'm reading the Don Winslow book, you know, Dog. I've been watching Narcos and you know, El Chapo and stuff, and I get this feeling of guilt. We propagated that stuff. That was us. The end users were not punished, and all those people that died, you know, they died because Americans were spending billions of dollars, obscene billions of dollars on addictive substances.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit scary. How do you make amends on that?
Yeah.
Tus trailers, visita mi canal.
It's taken from a Bach piece called, in German it's called Komm süßer Tag, which means, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's a melody. The actual piano arrangement is something like that, right? And the English translation is "Come Sweet Death," and I think that's where we kind of thought that not only musically, but that just that concept somehow went very well with the concept of the film, right? Come Sweet Death.
The junkie vampire concept.
The stuff that comes first, you know, Bella and Christopher Lee and all that. But the idea in the addiction, it's that, but it's different. It's, you know, the vampires are up in the daytime. That makes sense. The fact that it was black and white added to you know, that they really are vampires, and the guy standing next to you might be a vampire. And what is it? My character says, "I've been doing it so long, I can do human things. You know, I eat. You know."
Sanford Meisner, that acting teacher, had said that he thought that people really didn't learn how to act till after about 20 years, and I'm finding there's something about that that I'm finding. It's like wisdom, you know. It's just neat being around for so long that things start to. You've experienced so much that you don't have to go down certain roads because you've done it. So it's here. It's just deeper, and it's here. And so the acting, I feel it's almost it's as opposed to like feelings coming up, and instead of it going clank 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 clank, and it's there. Instead, it's just kind of like, and it's fulfilling. It's like satisfying or fulfilling or something.
It's the first time. How the fuck do you remember all the fucking lines, man? I mean,
Yeah. It's hard, and it gets harder. Iago is the longest part in Shakespeare. It's longer than Hamlet.
yeah. Okay.
I had a tape recorder. I put it all on. When I would play it was 40 minutes, I think 40 plus minutes of nonstop talking. And yeah, you're right.
And what, you played in your sleep?
But the scary thing is to walk on stage and hope you remember. Because there's no guarantee.
And there's no prompt that people
There's no.
It's not like high school where they go,
You walk out and you think, oh, I hope I remember.
And what happens when you don't?
Then it's
You been in
really,
that spot?
it's very
You ever been in that
scary.
spot?
Absolutely, totally scary.
No, and you can always touch that. You can always.
No,
Right.
I mean, it still is painful, and there's struggles and all that, but it's sort of like, well, you know, I mean, what are you, how old are you?
Too old. Like
Come on.
66.
Okay, so, you know, I mean, there's stuff that when we've been around, there's just some neat stuff that starts to happen. You know, you just know stuff. You just know some stuff. It's become more of just an expert at life. You've just got more experience. And the acting is sort of like, the feelings like are just like a teat on the trapeze. It's just like on the not the trapeze, the tightrope. It's like shit starts just flow in a way because you know, and it's pretty neat.
Has anybody ever made a movie? You know, always it's the script and then you get the actors. Has anybody ever gotten a bunch of actors who were, you know, sitting around and said, okay, we got 3 men, 4 women, 2 old guys, 2 young guys. Write a movie for that.
I want to start off doing like we have a thing and we shoot a scene, and the editors come in and we're looking at the stuff, and then we go to another scenes depending on the scenes we shot and that. But any producer, even rock and roll producers I got, like I tell that they're like, there's going to be no script. There's going to be no script. I talked to a couple of my actor friends, and you'd be game. Like we have premise, and then we start shooting it, and then based on the scenes we shot, the stuff that works, the editor is working, we're shooting, we're all doing it together. Chris, we try it, man. We all put up some. I want to take the other thing. I want my big concept, like the Jackie Gleason deal is. We do all that. We put up the money, sell it. We have the one hit that we never have, and now we, and that's the payoff. And there's your retirement fund, There's nothing to stop us.
So, yeah, think about it.
Yeah, I am. That's what was so important to make it up. We had the vision of that. What else was there?
When do you fly back?
I got to be at the airport at 3 o'clock.
Today?
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but what else? What else? Do you have anything on mind?
I'd like to sing for you.
Are you still doing the trapeze?
Not as, I haven't been doing it as much in the past year, but yeah. I fly still for sure.
You still fly down
Yeah.
in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I fly wherever I can.
Oh yeah, right. So wait, tell us more about that. What's your secret?
Oh yeah, I discovered a rig in state about 7 years ago or so, and I got the bug. So I just love flying. It's a great trapeze is a great metaphor. Great. There's a lot of shit to work out there, and it's like it's 8 seconds, and yet from taking off to being caught is 8 seconds, and yet the amount of stuff that you can learn in those 8 seconds. First of all, consciousness. Like, I didn't know from when I took off, be caught, and when the catcher said, what did you see? Nothing. I have no idea what happened from when I took off to now. I don't know what the hell. All I know is I'm here right now. And then, now you could say, did you see that red pole as you were flying? Yeah, I saw the red pole. So the consciousness that started to happen through the years of flying, now in those 8 seconds, whereas before they were unconscious, and now I have consciousness while I'm flying through the air, awareness and an ability to adjust, and it's really cool. Wow. Really cool.
You teaching the baby?
Huh?
Teaching your daughter?
Yeah, she's.
And do you fly with a net or without a net?
Oh God, honey, a belt and a net. No, because I'm not stupid.
No, I got it.
No, because you could break your neck. It's also getting older, knowing about limitations. I don't do something like, I know I'm not 20, so I don't try to do something that you would do as a 20-year-old body.
You're not indestructible anymore. We used to say when I was parachuting, if your parachute doesn't open, you get the rest of you learn how to fly.
The Addiction was made towards the middle of the period which many of his admirers regard as Abel Ferrara's a golden age, the series of masterpieces which ran throughout the 90s, from King of New York to New Rose Hotel. The Addiction actually harks back to one of Abel's earliest films, Ms. 45, and so strongly resembles that film that to an extent you could give a single plot synopsis which would apply just as well to either film. In both films, a young woman living on her own in New York is dragged into an alleyway and assaulted. The assault brings about a change in her personality, which eventually leads to her roaming the streets and attacking strangers. And the climaxes of both films occur at a party in which the guests are massacred. But the differences between the two films are in many ways as important as the similarities. Whereas Thana, the protagonist of Ms. 45, is mute and is denied access to language. The protagonist of The Addiction, Kathleen, is a philosophy student, and she finds that she can actually use language as a weapon.
Dependency is a marvelous thing. It does more for the soul than any formulation of doctoral material. Indulge me.
people have singled out The Addiction as their favorite of Abel Ferrara's films. But in this, I think it has something in common with Monty Hellman's film, Two Lane Blacktop, in that I believe the film is possibly admired by people for the wrong reasons. I think the reason people admire Two Lane Blacktop is because they think the very cool central characters are being presented as admirable in some way. Whereas I think the film is really a criticism of cool detachment. And I think it's very much the same thing with The Addiction, that the philosophical questions posed by Kathleen are taken by many people far more seriously, I believe, than Abel Ferrara intends them to be taken. I think the film is ultimately very critical of philosophical ideas and of the idea that human experience can be summed up in any brief form, in any kind of soundbite. And if there is a philosopher whose work really does sum up the film's theme, I'm sure it would be Wittgenstein, who once said that the world of the happy man is a very different one from that of the unhappy man. As always, of course, vampirism is a metaphor. And what's interesting is that the way that The Addiction presents vampirism has a lot to do with the way that Abel's film Body Snatchers treated a variation on the themes of Don Siegel's film, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. In both films, something is seen as the central metaphor is a disease, which is spreading gradually throughout the world. But it's obviously a metaphor for something else. And in The Addiction, obviously, it's a metaphor for addiction. But it's also interesting that because the film is made in black and white, it also has a great deal in common with George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which is another metaphor, the metaphor of the zombie, of living dead. And it's all of these ideas are ways of addressing a reality which might otherwise be intolerable or in some sense unthinkable. And this was the great thing about the Gothic. It allowed writers and later filmmakers to address issues which could not have been addressed in any other terms. The flaw of the Gothic is that it cannot decisively come down on one side of the argument. In other words, the Gothic presents evil as a question. And the question is evil something that has an existence in nature, or is it instead a label that people have put on nature in order to disown certain human impulses which are considered to be beyond the pale? And the Gothic, by terms of the language that it's using, cannot come down on one side or the other of this argument, which is, in a sense, a tremendous limitation, but in another sense, a tremendous advantage. And when Sheridan Le Fanu wrote his novel Carmilla, he really created one of the great literary hymns to lesbianism. Yet at the same time, I very much doubt that Sheridan Le Fanu even knew what a lesbian was. But because of this language that he was working in, he was able to actually celebrate lesbianism, but very ambiguously. And I think The Addiction is a film that's very much in the line of descent from Carmilla and from the Gothic, and that the impulses that are assigned to vampirism can neither be celebrated nor condemned. And the film ultimately has to end with questions rather than answers. I think it's in the nature of the language of the Gothic that it cannot present answers, it can only present questions.
You know, because there's not a lot of films with a female protagonist, you dig, that when you have a film like this where the material,
Tus trailers,
you know, you have the
visita
great
mi
material
canal.
and you have the great woman, you know, it's like, it's special, you know. I mean, Miss 45 in a sense was that way too. And it's special because, you know, the female side, the power of the female, and it's, you know, the camera eats it up, you know, I mean, and is when it's there, and it's there throughout the whole film here, you know. It's something because it's not done, you know, and what, 80, 90% of the movies are made are male leads, right? So the ones that really count are all in black and white. And, you know, it was that period, Gordon Willis shooting for Woody was like a powerful period in, I guess Raging Bull. We grew up with, our first films were in black and white. The Hold Up, the films we made as kids, they were in black and white. The films we really learned to love outside of, of the Hollywood films we watched, not even knowing that, there was an art to them. When we started really picking and choosing, Godard and Ingmar Bergman and, Howard the Wolf was in black and white. Those films are, you know what I mean? You want to make at least one feature film in black and white. And at that point in time, you needed a film that you were basically shooting for very little budget. And there wasn't a lot of people around really concerned. It was like a film made in complete freedom. Kels went that way. Kels was the projectionist at the film school. But him and I have worked so much together, that at that point, that we just see things eye to eye. Me and him, it's like we have, we could really rumble on the set and we could rumble in real life. But we got big differences about small things. But, the big things we're seeing eye to eye. And that's like, I was really inspired watching a little bit, seeing the film just now, because that one camera where you're just going for it, it's the Bad Lieutenant style. You dig? Well, you got the camera, Kenny's shooting. Kenny, like I say, man, this guy's a special forces background. He's not framing actors, man. He's like taking a beat on them. You dig? He's got them in the crosshairs. And there's a power you get as the film goes on in the way he's framing things, and the way he's shooting things. You dig? That only he could do. And you're not getting, it's like the B camera, like when we always shoot with two cameras. The other camera, as good as the other guys are, they're not locked in like him and I. Plus, you can only shoot for one camera. The B camera is always a compromise. As much as you saw, wow, I got something great, I got that, I never would have got that, blah, 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 blah. The B camera's a compromise. He lined the shot up today. He's got me where he wants me, this is that. If we were going to use another shot to get it wide or tight, that's going to be a compromise to the way he's setting this up. You dig? So, and then with the one camera, we had no choice. It's, again, I've said this 100 times, that's almost like it's a quote of mine, but it's not a quote of mine, it's a Godard quote. The economics of a film or the politics of a film, there was no discussion of two cameras. You dig? You have one camera, and you're lucky you had that, and you're shooting it that way. And I don't even know if we had video there, or assist or anything. You're shooting old school, bro. The guy's shooting, he's either gets it or he don't, and, and there's no, it might be take two, hopefully. Definitely no take three. We always shot in the street, we just shot. You can't, at a certain point, the way I'm shooting now is the way I started off shooting. We just made films, and everybody was all in, and there was no money, and no one expected to make money, and there was no, I'm talking about like the 70s, late 70s, Driller Killer time, and Could This Be Love time, and even Miss 45 time. And, and then we went in another direction of, bigger budget films, and, we went Hollywood, man. We went shooting Fierce City and King of New York and China Girl. These were big budget union films, and once you turn that page, you can't go back because, I'm a New York union guy. I'm in the union. The guys are in the union. They get pensions, and thank God, they get health benefits and the whole deal. And, by being outside that, but then that locks you in to having to raise X amount of money. And on a film like this one, we couldn't. I demanded that we can shoot this film if everyone agreed not to take a salary, which our guys did. One of the reasons we just came back from, I think it was Dangerous Game. I forget, maybe it wasn't Dangerous Game. We had just done something, and, we could do it. The crew was doing it, not getting paid. No one was getting paid. And they would get paid later. In the end, everyone got half of their normal salary. The other half of the salary was stolen by some disreputable distributors, and and there was other situations that didn't. But they got half their money back. Okay, so and we own the film. It's the only film that we own the negative of, and so. You had to make one deal with the unions, and I went to the Teamsters. I went to the head of the Teamsters. I forget who it was at the time, but I'm sure he was Irish, you know. And I basically said, you know, we want to make a film for nothing if we get somebody to work. He says, if you get somebody to work for nothing, he thought it was a joke, you know, fine, no problem. Because those guys would shut you down. You just can't go out and shoot. If you were an NYU student, you could. But a guy like me couldn't with my guys, you know. So the Teamster said, if you find a guy who could shoot. So I just saw his name, and now I forget his name, but he was like one of the only black guys in the Teamsters. We basically went to him and said, you know, shoot this film for nothing, and you'll get paid later, and blah, 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 you know, typical, you know, huckster rap. And although we did pay him half, he, and when we get a real, you know, next time we shoot a legitimate in New York, you can be the captain of the crew, which is a big, you know, thing, big kind of, you know, cherry on, you know, to offer there. But, and we got him. And once we got the Teamsters, everybody else kind of fell in line to do it. I don't know how we did it with SAG. But we started pushing that to get different rules where everybody's not working by the Hollywood union standard. You know, then there was NABIT, then it was this, there was that. But, you know, this always becomes the battle. You know, I mean, it gets to the point where you need $3-4 million to make a movie. All the movies are going to look the same. Because once you start begging for money like that and go, unless, you know, you're, you know, a superstar director, I don't know what, but once that budget starts going up, you're not shooting movies like this. The Addiction is not going to get made for $3 or $4 million. Couldn't get made then, it couldn't get made now, you know, so. You know, my relationship with Nicky is, you know, I grew up with him, you know, I think I met him, I was 13 years old, 14 years old, you know, and he was like one of these kind of guys who was like, you know, this wasn't in the Bronx, this was when I was living in the country. He was like living in the country, you know. And, you know, I mean, he was writing when he was 14, you know, and he was playing the guitar, and these guys were into, you know, we were pop culture kids, you know, suburban kids, not him. You know, they were listening to Woody Guthrie, Hank Williams, you know, and playing, you know, and writing, and, you know, so, and it became a real, you know, it became a friendship. I was, you know, we were very, very close. And, you know, The Addiction got in the end of one of the last films we did together, you know. So his scripts, more or less, we shot them the way they came, his 45. They weren't collaborations. In the beginning, we collaborated, you know, he would be a director, I would act, this guy would be, you know, we changed up roles. But when we were at that stage, he was clearly the writer. And you know, his scripts came in strong, you know, Ms. 45, especially, let's say, Ms. 45, The Addiction, The Funeral. These were films that were like just, they arrived to me. I didn't even know he was working on them. And they were just, you know, they're just beautiful to me, you know. Like just ready for the camera because he knew how we shot. He knew, you know, what I could do, the things we could do, the things we couldn't do, you know. The other films we worked on, you know, King of New York was kind of battled out and worked on a lot. And, you know, Driller Killer was kind of an improvisation around an actual, you know, not the drilling wasn't the event, but that lifestyle was there. And I'm trying to think of what other films. Anyway, but The Addiction was, you know, a pure Nicky piece. And then, you know, even to this day, I mean, I always want the writer on the set, but it was even more powerful with him because, you know, of our relationship. So he was there for all the shooting. You know, we were addicted at the time, you know, but I wasn't addicted to heroin. This film is really focused on heroin. Nicky never did drugs, you know, she never did heroin. We talk about that in the interview thing. This was when I first started. I really wasn't an addict. I was using, but I wasn't addicted at this point. It's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but... And it was after this movie that I started getting, you know, like I said, you know, I had a 14-year, you know, journey with that drug, and you know, and it ends, you know, everybody's journey on that drug ends bad, you know. What does Miles Davis say? You know, it's a heavyweight champion world, and there's no you know, undefeated and untied. And you know, so now I see the film in that light and the balance of it. And on one hand, it shows you don't have to be an addict to write about it. Because Nicky hit it. Like he says, you know, you think Naked Lunch, you know, you think that these are works of fiction. No, they're not, you know. And using that, you know, there's the vampire metaphor is a metaphor for a lot of things. But it's definitely a metaphor for
visita mi canal.
smack. So, and yeah, I mean, that was our life downtown.
The final scene of the film in the graveyard seems to me extremely ambiguous, but I'd be very interested to hear your opinion.
What's ambiguous about it?
Is she dead? Is she still a vampire? Or is she alive?
No, she's been, you know, converted. She had her conversion. Her old life is gone. The life of the addict is over, and now she begins her new life as a spiritual being, as clean. You know, if you want to use the metaphor of fucking drugs, I mean, it's clear as a bell. But you know, that old self dies. The last moment, you know, her old friend tries to pull her back into the life. But she steps across, and she steps it with the power of God. I mean, this is Nikki. You know, she's taking a communion, dog. You know what I mean? This is a sacrament, a holy sacrament for Nikki and that movie. Sure, you can look at it a million different ways, but there's not that many ways you can look at that. And that power of her saying, help me, God, or the line that was there was perfect. It was beautiful. And we had a real priest. We nailed that motherfucker, okay? And it was his point. Okay, she left behind the life that she had, okay, and she's going on to a new life. And that girl who succumbed to the evil, that girl's gone. And now there's another girl who's going on to the rest of her life. Now, what's going to happen to her, you know, when the pain has come back, or if she's, you know, can she say no to it? You dig? When she's approached again, you know, when they put that line under your nose, or they give, you know, somebody offers you a glass, or somebody, you know, you're in a sexual situation and, you know it's the wrong move on the person you love, you know, are you going to succumb to it, or are you going to say no to it? And you got to say no with authority. You got to know what your moral stance is to say no. All those people that were bitten, they were given a choice. All of them, you know, could not, you know, face that dark side and have enough power within themselves to deny it. I mean, the film is what the film is. Even in this is one of these films, like, you know, you're either going to dig it and get it and buy it, or you're not, you know. I mean, I think the reaction is the same reaction we're going to get on the Blu-ray, because it's a one of a kind. And I'm saying it because, you know, again, I'm not just blowing, you know, smoke because it's my movie. In a sense, this is so, you know, I'm like just a player in this movie. You know, this is Lily's movie, it's Nikki's movie, it's Kenny's movie, you know, it's the editing team's movie, Mayanne and them, Joey's music, and everybody that made it, you know, and you could feel the soul of it. We're working for nothing, guys, you know, we're making this film because we want to make it. You know what I mean? You know, what does Quincy Jones say? Money what? When money enters the room, God leaves, you know. And this is like a pure example. I mean, and I'm so happy we made it. You know, we did make it, and you know, and the fact that you want to put it out now is a testament to, you know, what is there. So.
Anyway, okay, we ready to go? How we doing? You need any? Oh, you're shooting. Oh, great. We shooting? Go. Great. All right, let's go. Hi. Nah, it's fine. That's behind. I mean, I can live without New York, but I chose to live here. Okay. It's a good city to film it. You know. It's an interesting. Welcome to New York City. 9 flights above the hustle and bustle. So for all those safely tucked away in Europe, far from Bosnia and Herzegovina, just these, you know, just this, you know what I mean? Just these walls, just that, just here. Come here, let me show you something. Here, watch, look at this, come here. Just look Lean out there. Look at that building out there. Just lean out that window, looking down there. Ah, let's remind you of the good old days.
Is this it?
Yeah. Let's rejoice to the death of 6 million. I'm more worried what's going on in Bedford-Stuyvesant, personally. Or actually, more worried about what's going downstairs. Hoping your car is not getting ripped off. If you know what I'm saying. Angry, right? I mean, we just say New York City. You know, a lot of angry kids, yeah. A lot of kids who are, you know, brought up on a TV culture of buy, and ain't got no do. You know, so they put a gun to your head. Here's the film that's not in the movie. And there's our editor-in-chief over here. Working away while we're playing, while we're talking. Look at this. This is an actual cut going to be performed. This is like brain surgery. She's looking for blood, so she slashes her wrist, trying to get a drink. So he gives her books and takes the razor blade. Watch. I like the vibe. I like the you know, the constant energy. You know, I like the different people. I like the culture. I like the freedom of it. You know, there's a certain kind of, you know, kind of do what you want kind of groove. Is that on? Are we rocking here?
Did you shoot this on black and white?
Yeah, no, we did shoot. It's in black and white, on black and white stocks. There's no going back. But in black and white, the blood is Hershey syrup.
Chocolate.
Yeah, you know, just like Campbell's soup is good. Uh-oh. Now, when you don't see your own reflection in the mirror, babe, you're in big motherfucking trouble. Excuse me. Excuse my language. Yeah. Now, what you gonna do now, money?
Being in time.
Being in time.
Ideas.
Nietzsche.
Sickness unto death, Kierkegaard. Will to power, Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, our favorite. I mean, the only way you know about what's going on in Bosnia is what you read in the New York Times, right? I mean, who the fuck knows? They don't even know what's going on there. Check this out. Now she's getting to be a vampire. Here we go. Here we go. Vampire fever. Ah! So now we're going to go to another son of the German, of the homeland. Our boy Christopher Walken. 100% German. Came over 140 years ago. Family owns a bakery in Queens. Check this one out. You want to get in there? You tight on this? Yep. Check this rap. Oh wait, let's run back a little bit. It's not coming.
Aquí tus trailers. Visita mi canal.
I felt the wind with the wings of madness. Baudelaire.
Ha! And you're not. So, I feel freer here than I feel anywhere else. But then I'm from here, so, you know, people generally gravitate to where they were born. You know? I don't know why. Yeah, the German cinema was like Fassbinder's, you know, to us, like. You know,
What attracts you to him particularly?
his ability to fucking make films, you know. You know, everything about him. You know, the guy's, you know, these are fucking films you could sit and watch, you know. Hold it, let's see that again. You think you understand things? You know nothing.
From me. You came after me, you took my hand, you tried to force me into some alley. Isn't that how it went? You think you understand things? You know nothing. You understand nothing. I'll show you what you are. Teach you what hunger is.
Teach you what hunger is. Who, Fassbinder? Yeah, he's coming at you a mile a minute with fucking ideas, you know. He's got more ideas in 5 minutes of his films than, you know, Hollywood had in the last 2 years. This is why I live in New York. Because if you fall over like this, you get a guy, there's always somebody like Nicky to come and help you out. You know what I mean? St. Vincent's is always right around the corner. Only he's going to need St. Vincent's now. So, what else? Jesus Christ and the Bad Lieutenant. Buddy Holly himself. There he goes. There's Buddy Holly. Whoa! Look out. That's Sister Morphine? I think we better hit the super bass. I can see the reflection of my night. There's no money in my life. And I can chew my quarter. enough.
Okay.
Enough playing. Thank you. Going down. Ladies' lingerie. Off and on. 7 seconds. Shot the driller killer right there. Drill somebody in the head. Check this out. So they first had this, and after 20 years of design, they ended up with this horrifying looking
Y tus
stuff.
trailers.
Looks like one of the
Visita
cars
mi
they make in
canal.
East Germany. That's to put down East Germany. This is what I'm saying about New York. Check that shot out. With the clouds behind it, I don't know if you're going to get this. Check that. Is that? You can't really see the top of it. That's quite the place. So, welcome to Manhattan. Guys, it was a pleasure. All right, goodbye. Whoa!
Yo.
Germany. Auf Wiedersehen, bis später.